I'm sorry, Mike London. This is not the way to keep your job. Somebody in the ACC office was not looking out for you when they made out this 2014 Virginia Cavaliers schedule. Mark Rogers TV looking at every Power 5 conference schedule in America leading up to opening day in just 15 days away, and we've got our work cut out for us, making our way through the Big Ten, the SEC, and now almost through the ACC. We've hit just about rock bottom with the 2-10 Cavaliers from 2013. Look at this schedule. Mike London's on the hot seat. He has recruited well, but it's not produced on the field. And he's going to win some football games. I don't know if he's got to reach postseason play after winning just 2 games last season. If anybody wants to see improvement in this football team, they may not be able to measure it in wins and losses. They're going to have to measure it based on the production on the field, the improvement on the field, considering this schedule. This schedule is serious. All right, let's break down the non-conference competition. UCLA, week 1, at home. So the Bruins do have to travel cross-country to take on Virginia, but that's week 1 against the chic pick to make the college football playoffs, the 7th-ranked UCLA Bruins, again, in week 1. Then it's a game against Richmond that's not a gimme against the Spiders. Let's stick with the non-conference slate because Virginia just does jump in against Louisville in week 3. But then the Cavaliers have BYU, a game that they somehow pulled out last year. So if you look at the aftermath of the season, see that BYU played extremely well against a difficult schedule. And the Cavaliers went 2-10. And they beat BYU. I don't know that they're going to have the same success this year on the road at Provo, taking on the BYU Cougars. So that's UCLA, Richmond, and BYU taking on the Cougars on the road in Provo, and then a game against Kent State that is, again, with the shape and the status of this program, the way it stands right now, no games are locks. Not Kent State at home, not even Richmond at home. So it's UCLA and BYU, the very 2 difficult games. Virginia is going to have to hope, Cavalier fans, that you go 2-2 non-conference. Now, the reason I say that the ACC did Mike London little favors here is that Virginia plays in the Coastal Division that is very, very up for grabs. A number of teams will win 7 or 8 football games and go anywhere from 3-5 to 5-3 in the ACC from that division. Just look at last season. Duke won it. You got Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech. You've got Duke, North Carolina, who may be the most talented team in the division. Pitt made a bowl game, won 7 games last season as well. Virginia, who do you play in the other division? Well, they played the 2 toughest teams in the other division, potentially. Florida State. They've got to play Florida State this year. Coming off 2-10, they've got to play FSU. And you know that 5 teams in the conference get a break and don't see Florida State, but it's not Virginia. They're not one of them. They've got to take on Florida State, the 10th game of the season. That coming off playing Duke, North Carolina, and Georgia Tech. And then after Florida State, they've got Miami and Virginia Tech. They also play in the other division, Louisville. So Virginia, Mike London couldn't catch a break and get, Boston College or Wake Forest or North Carolina State, who went 0-8 in the ACC last season. No, it was Florida State and newcomer Louisville, who's going to be a power in this conference. Wow, this is a difficult schedule. Let's run it from top to bottom. UCLA, that's a loss. Richmond has to be a win. Louisville at home, they may have a 10 or 15% chance of winning that game, but most likely a loss against the Cardinals. Then they go to BYU. That's a loss. They've got Kent State at home. Not a lock for a win, but the Cavaliers should win that game against Kent State. That would leave them at 2-3. Then comes the tough stretch in the ACC. So they're done with the non-conference at that point. Then they've got Pitt, a game at Duke, North Carolina, Georgia Tech on the road in Atlanta. And again, they finish up with Florida State, Miami, and Virginia Tech. I think that this final stretch of 6 games is minus Clemson, just about as tough as you can get in the ACC. Duke, North Carolina, Georgia Tech, Florida State, Miami, Virginia Tech. The Virginia Cavaliers Most likely go 2-2 non-conference. And let's just try to find a win in conference. Where's it going to be? Possibly at home against Pitt. I'm not finding a win here. If it's 1-7 for the Cavaliers in the ACC, it's going to be that game, most likely going to be the game at home against Pitt on October 4th. Or they could win at Duke. The Blue Devils won the division, but we know that Duke's a bit thin on the roster still under David Cutcliffe. So it could be the game at Duke. The home schedule is brutal. Again, Pitt, North Carolina, Miami, and Louisville at home. All right, Virginia, I'm going to give you one steal in the ACC, and it's most likely going to be Pitt at home. It possibly could be... Man, I can't come up with another win. It's got to be that Pitt game at home. And then 2-2 non-conference. So 3-9 for Virginia. Sorry, Mike London. Most likely that's not going to keep your job. Virginia fans, find some hope for me. You may have it on the field with your football team. You've recruited reasonably well over the past 2 or 3 seasons. But this schedule, this is one of the more difficult schedules in the country. UCLA, BYU, Louisville, Duke, North Carolina, Georgia Tech, Florida State, Miami, Virginia Tech. Wow, it's loaded. Cavalier fans, find me some hope. Hang in there. Let's talk some Virginia football right here on Mark Rogers TV.